Welcome to the Nerds and Friends podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have actor James Tang joining us. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, James. We're so excited to have you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Very happy to have you. With my co-hosts today are Carrie Duvall, Nathan Childs, and Will Shaw. And we're very happy to be here today. So, James, tell us about your acting career so far and what your aspirations are. And just kind of let's dive in. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out in LA for about 7.5 years now, but I started acting about 6.5 years ago in LA. I actually started acting after I studied filmmaking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I went back home and decided to take some acting classes because I wanted to improve my directing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, but it was, turns out it was something I actually always wanted to do, but I never opened myself up to it, never gave myself permission for it. Part of that could be, a lack of representation. Another part of that, I think, just growing up and just being a bit of a shyer kid and not ever imagining that for myself, giving myself permission for that.
Right.
And then eventually, very, very long story short, I made it back out to LA to pursue filmmaking and couldn't meet people, didn't know how to meet people, didn't know how to get in sets. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try to get back into acting just to give myself another option.
Yeah.
Started out with some background stuff and, getting onto student film sets, and then meeting a friend for dinner just to catch up with her. But then she also came out to pursue acting. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm thinking about it. She's like, just do it. I was like, what? Just get headshots, go to acting class. Here's my class, go. It's like, okay, sure. Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine, whatever.
Just fall straight into it. I love it.
Yeah, kind of, she kicked me in the butt, like down a cliff. And I'm still rolling since pretty much. Yeah, but it's like as I kept doing more classes and not just acting classes, but business of acting classes, and really doing more of it and engrossing myself and seeing other people and really realizing, like, not only do I feel like I can be competitive in LA, even though originally coming here, it was like, this is the Hollywood or the Olympics of acting. I don't
Right.
Cool.
That's perfect, because the Olympics are for amateurs, if we're being honest.
Yeah, totally.
And in an actual sense, like, you're not supposed to be a professional athlete if you're in the Olympics. You're supposed to be an amateur.
Right. And yeah, coming here, so it was seeing more and more people and being like, okay, I could be competitive, as well as the fact that, like, I should be doing this because, like, representation for Asian guys, which I am, and I only got one face to work with, it's been lacking in Hollywood historically. So, like, just by being here and being the best version of me, it's like that, I think that helps add to the narrative and spectrum of representation. So it's like, to me, it's like a responsibility as well.
I can really appreciate that. Yeah. So what are your, do you have like a goal, or do you just, as far as wanting to increase like good representation, or do you have something that you think would be like a good example of more of better representation when it comes down to film?
Well, to me, representation is a spectrum. Like, it's a rainbow, and so, like, it really is just about the numbers and seeing people in different types of people and situations and careers and personalities and stuff, like
the full diversity of human beings that look and act and have different kinds of personality characteristics or lifestyles, all being on film or represented in media, being important.
Exactly. For me personally, my own aspirations and goals are, of course, very selfish and include Jedi, Marvel superhero, Mandalorian,
yes,
fortune hunter, detective, like action hero type roles, like stuff that I really would want to, enjoy watching.
Vision board, man. That sounds like
exactly.
That's an awesome vision board.
Yeah. So that's one spectrum, but then it's something like me personally. I've also been writing some stuff with
Awesome.
some friends because yeah, it's like not everyone has the capability, I guess, of telling these stories from the outside in. And to again, demonstrate the whole thing of the spectrum is like in terms of just like specifically like large Asian cast projects out there, there's been like on TV, Fresh Off the Boat, and now Kung Fu on CW, Crazy Rich Asians. And yeah, so you have like the rom-com, you have like some action stuff, Shang-Chi, of course. But one thing that I've noticed that we haven't really had that I'm trying to add a voice to is like the raunchy, disgusting, stupid comedy. Our Pineapple Express and the Superbads. Like we don't really have that yet.
Yeah.
And so it's like trying to just fill up like each jar and like every across the board kind of situation.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Building off of that really quick. So perhaps you can tell me, when are we getting the Batfished sequel?
Thank you for taking a look at that. Yeah, for those that don't know, it's I one of those projects I had written was a vampire short film starring myself. That one, I don't know. The team is kind of like drifted away, partially due to COVID. There was a whole, basically it came out like the end of 2019, and so we're like, okay, let's see where we're gonna go with this. Okay, and then like people went on vacation, things kind of drifted away, and then it was like pandemic, and I was like, I'm never gonna work again. Why do I even bother? There's a bit of that like artistic doldrum that happened.
Yeah.
But
you've got the dearth of time, but like that what's the point feeling, or just like I don't know what to fucking do with myself.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I was I hadn't realized that you actually wrote that as well as starred in it.
Yeah, that was part of that process of being like and this isn't just being an Asian actor, this is I think just being an actor in general. Like actors starting out, you're competing really with the names, the famous people, because the industry being a business is all about risk mitigation. And so why would they want to cast someone that is unknown and hasn't been kind of proven that they have the chops versus like, oh, this person was a series regular on this show. Like, why don't we just throw them in the role? And they're like, they mostly fit. They kind of fit, So it's like all about like finding that realm of like someone taking a risk on you.
That's a really good way to put it, because that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like writing for myself. Like I could take a big risk on myself because I know myself, and like yeah, it was self-funded, and but it was like finding the right people that also kind of believed in me, and we're like, let's just make a thing together, And so that was really awesome to even have people really believe in me in that way too.
I love how stuff like that goes. Just but like I have a deep passion for indie projects, especially cult movies of any kind. Like and I think I remember one of the first ones that actually really got me into like super indie cult classics was El Mariachi, which is Robert Rodriguez's first film, that he funded through like having medical experiments done on him. He got 50 grand. Trials, yeah, exactly. And that's how he also met the main villain for the movie. Like they were both getting the clinical trials done at the same time. And that's one of those movies that spawned like not just one of the most impressive like action and story directors out there, Robert Rodriguez, but like that movie alone spawned Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, both of which are freaking fantastic films. And that's how we got like we get action star Antonio Banderas, we get Danny Trejo in most of his roles, like we got Salma Hayek. We get a lot of cool stuff from diverse directors who take a risk and make weird or diverse things, or just something where it's a passion project, but they know they want to put themselves into it.
And something we've never seen before, which is awesome. Just something new,
mold.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it's really interesting that you're breaking. Well, what kind of raunchy comedy would you want to make, James?
I mean, right now, what we have written is crime comedy. It's yeah, it's like just like a sort of like, I guess like just like it's basically like about a couple dudes like just trying to like break into the crime world, you know,
Mhm.
and then really realizing that they're not cut out for this. They're way in over their heads. Like they're just so incompetent and useless, and then the people around
awesome.
them are like, yeah, it's just like a ridiculous fish out of water situation.
That sounds really fun, actually.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
getting like vibes of like the three terrible criminals in the movie Snatch, where they're
Yep.
like that.
Snatch is one of my favorite films. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love Guy Ritchie films in general. Oh, is that your favorite Guy Ritchie film? That's the question.
Yes.
Very cool.
Snatch is probably the one I've seen the most, and then Lock, Stock I'd say definitely comes second, but I think maybe because I just didn't have the DVD, whereas Snatch was like right there, so I could like, play that thing too. It was like
well, Lock, Stock's another one of those like indie flicks where we got a whole bunch of stuff out of it. Like Jason Statham before that, like he got hired because they needed a dude who looked like he was a street level crook. And Jason Statham at the time was a street level crook. So like him selling watches when you first see him in Lock, Stock is like what he was doing right before that.
That's awesome.
So that's so cool. I'm a big fan of Rock and Rolla as far as like the like that is like quietly my favorite Guy Ritchie film.
Okay.
Interesting.
Highly recommend it.
Well, James, what are some of the things that you find the most fulfilling about acting, and then what are some of the things that are the most challenging?
The most fulfilling is the acting itself, really. You know, to me, and I was talking to people about this recently, where like I think like true acting is like it doesn't feel like work. You know, you're playing. It's like you drop all the inhibitions and you're just living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. You know, and that's kind of like what we did as kids when we were playing. It was just like you're a freaking space astronaut, you know, with your little blaster. And it's like, but you look at it from the outside, it's like this is a kid in a darkened bedroom with like some lights and like with the plastic toy that doesn't even look like a gun, you know. But it's like you just let your imagination go wild and you just have fun with it. You know, that's definitely the most fulfilling part of it. And the most challenging part is the business side I had mentioned before, where it kind of takes away from the art, where you know decisions are made to try to make more money and that aren't necessarily art centric. You know, someone is cast simply because they were in this big project before, you know. And if like, but if you trace I guess their path all the way to the beginning, it's like someone could have the domino effect of just getting lucky with that first one and then constantly like failing upwards or something. Because when you watch their acting, like, oh, it's maybe not good at all, you know. But yeah, like, you know, so I think it's also very easy as the artist to point and criticize, because I used to do that. It's just like how dare they make such a like a schlocky action film with so much money, and it's just like the most like useless script in the world. But then like being more inside of it and stuff is just like, oh, it's a business. It's a business, and just figuring out how to navigate that.
Figuring out what needs to be, figuring out what is actually made, because this is going to be your moneymaker, as opposed to like funding those smaller projects. And I think I remember, Josh, didn't you have a story like from acting class about like how the producer of Piranha 3D was also like, it also turned out that was the guy that like he used that money to fund Winter's Bone, which
it was
like
the King's Speech.
That was it.
Funded primarily by profits from the same studio that did Piranha 3D. So that can happen. Weird things can happen. That was from film school, not acting class, but you're correct.
Like I said, I've got a thing for schlock, but like that's. Have you, James? Have you found it? Have you found it's easier to be, like as they say, talent as opposed to running mechanisms, or are you still really involved in trying to make a lot of movies, like from a director standpoint?
I definitely kind of just dove headfirst into the acting, as in front of the camera stuff. So like I kind of put that on hold until I realized, I need to use those skills and those kind of capabilities and connections that I have as a filmmaker, and try to do things doubling up because acting from the business side, especially starting out, you're literally a replaceable cog in a wheel. And they're just trying to make sure you're that right cog that fits. But then it's like, if something is up or you're being difficult or like you just happen to catch COVID or something, they're like, okay, cool, we're going to take that out and pop another one in. Sorry, bye. And it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But there is also an allure to that of being like, oh, I don't really have to think too much about stuff, right? Like producing and scheduling, getting a whole team together. No, you just show up on set, know your lines, hit your marks, act as best as you can, versus like being a producer and like having to deal with, oh, the DP got really drunk the night before and like it hasn't woken up yet or something. What the heck are we gonna do? Because we're about to start the shoot, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, that being talented, there is that kind of, I guess, ease to it, but then there also comes like sacrifices with that as well.
And also kind of as you work as part of that machine, you do kind of figure out what's going on around you, and those end up being a lot of the marketable skills that really help in wherever you go, because being an actor or knowing how to be an actor has got to help as being a director or a writer, or when you're trying to do things behind the scenes like rigging or stage management, knowing how all of these different pieces go. That's all gotta kind of tie in with each other, because when you know how all the pieces around you need you to act, it makes everything that much more efficient, really.
That's awesome.
Basically starting from the bottom, working your way up.
Yes.
Yeah, essentially.
Nathan is our nerd on the road, coming to us from, what state are you in right now, Nathan?
I'm in Iowa. I just left Des Moines.
Oh, nice.
I'm heading east. I'm heading for Cincinnati.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome, man.
Grab yourself some chili and keep going.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, James, what's like a trivia fact about you that people don't know? Just so as you get more and more famous, people will come back to this podcast and be like, I didn't know that about James.
Yeah, what is that secret that you want to keep until you're really famous and it comes back to haunt you later?
Oh man.
That puts a weird spin on the question, but we'll go with it,
Well, I got a piercing in a place
blackmail with friends.
Right.
Yes.
I guess, I'm usually a pretty open book about things too as well. But I guess something that people wouldn't normally assume right off the bat is that actually I grew up in Thailand and went to international school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I speak with a pretty, I guess, neutral American accent or Californian American accent. So right off the bat, people wouldn't, I guess, automatically know that about me.
That's awesome. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have picked that up at all. You sound like you're LA born, raised, and everything.
That's actually my exact thought too. I wouldn't have placed that anywhere.
It's funny because a lot of us do sound like that. Some people's theory is that it's because a lot of media is American based. But I don't know. But a lot of international school students sound American.
When I was learning Mandarin back in college, the TAs were all from Beijing, and the head instructor of CU Mandarin department was she was from Taiwan, and all the TAs spoke with British accents because that's how they learned that British like the true English affect, and they all said that one of the things that they watched was Hugh Grant movies. At least the two or three I talked to, and that's where they picked up like part of their vernacular.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Media matters.
Yeah.
I want to visit Thailand so bad. When I was in the army, I had 2 Buddhist monks from Thailand attached to our unit as chaplains. They were the only 2 Buddhist chaplains in the whole army, and they were the nicest people ever. And I loved learning meditation from them. Was like a game changer. That was so cool. I still do meditation to this day because it's so helpful. So
nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm biased, but Thailand is awesome.
I definitely want to visit. That's
It's a
awesome.
great place. Yeah.
That's really
So,
cool.
yeah, and I did see, which weirdly, before I even knew we were going to have you on the podcast, I actually had already found some of your stuff because a couple of your YouTube shorts had actually popped up in my feed, which I gotta say, knowing you're from Thailand does explain why you were so keen to teach people how to use chopsticks. So,
Although
that I got-
ironically, that's more my Chinese side, because in Southeast Asia, it's fork and spoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that because with the lesson plan there, part 1, 2, and 3, I was watching that and I was wondering, like, did you just wake up one day and like, I choose violence today?
It was, yeah, I don't know. That was definitely when I was feeling things out, because yeah, I feel like my TikTok and social media content has definitely shifted in a different direction since then. Yeah, especially YouTube Shorts. It's funny because I rarely use YouTube Shorts because I haven't figured out what to even put on there, or if what their algorithm favors, or even if it's worth doing it. But yeah, like, it's a funny cultural thing where, yeah, chopsticks are definitely more East Asian, whereas Southeast Asian cultures are generally fork and spoon. But like, at least in Thailand, you still do use chopsticks when like you eat noodles, but certain types of noodles. So it's like yeah, it's like Southeast Asia is literally like a mash of East and South Asian cultures. Like, it just all mashed together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned noodles, I'm hungry because I haven't had breakfast yet. So
Yeah, same.
That's pretty dang cool. And out of Southeast Asia, we got like we've had a like a good run of really, really good martial arts flicks, actually. I'm a huge martial arts movie fan, but like, that's because we've gotten all of Tony Jaa's work.
Yeah.
Like,
He's amazing.
He's amazing. He's also somebody that I know that, like, people that watch action movies, if they don't know about Tony Jaa and you tell them about Ong Bak or any of the Protector movies, you're gonna change their fucking life. because like, you go out and you're like, yeah, so this is post Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and this is a dude who's like, we want to do everything with no wires, and he has his own stunt crew and just like goes ham and makes some really awesome fight scenes. I mean, that was one of the things that got me into training Muay Thai before it was like a huge MMA staple. I saw the movie The Protector in theaters, and you see Tony Jaa fighting against dudes on rollerblades and on ATVs and everything with high flying knees and elbows, and you're like, that I want to do that shit. And yeah, his movies also, like, I don't know how much Tony Jaa, like, because I'm pretty sure he directs a couple of his movies.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know how much of his are like, I just want to make the martial arts fantasy that I've always wanted to live, because like Ong Bak 2 is basically Tony Jaa is an orphan who is raised in the woods by a group of assassins who know every martial art known to man, and some of those martial arts are like grenade throwing. And Tony Jaa learns all of them. That's awesome. And then lives a live action anime fantasy. It's superb. I could go off on Tony Jaa movies, but like, when you get like really good films from areas you weren't expecting, I mean, The Raid's another great example of like Indonesian martial arts with the Pencak Silat, and also just fucking fantastic action directing. You get both where it's influenced by American cinema and how multinational things are, and also you get that stuff brought back. You know, like, I remember one of the big selling points when they did the Star Wars reboot was that the stunt team from The Raid was doing the stunts for the new Star Wars movies.
I wish they had more of a cameo in there, because they were just in for a second, like playing minor. I figured their characters' names, but that would have been cool if they had a bigger role, because they're so talented. Like, the Raid movies are incredibly well made, and I would have liked to see more of them in the Star Wars movie. That would have been cool.
Absolutely.
Oh. Oh, there's a dog trying to make a cameo.
There's Havoc yawning. He doesn't like when I'm talking to people on the Zoom.
Yeah.
It's like, you should be having a conversation with me.
Yeah. So going back to just like casting in LA, like, have you noticed, I know that you're wanting to bring more diversity in there. Have you noticed like being excluded because being Asian, like going for different roles, has that noticeably affected you, or have you found that it's more open these days?
With, I think, acting and getting cast and stuff, there's never like a specific, there's never a clear answer about these things, because no one's gonna be telling you specifically like, hey, you're too Asian kind of thing. Sometimes because I'm also a bit of a walking anti-stereotype. Like the I'm 6'1" and athletic, which kind of is the opposite of all the kind of like Asian male stereotypes that have existed already in within kind of Western media. So luckily I don't have to worry about doing stereotypical roles. But there are times where it just feels like, I guess there was one time I had one manager and he wanted to be very diverse. So he kind of brought people on of like all different ethnicities and stuff. And then there was like a role, like a superhero role, where like only some of his clients got it. But I was like the only Asian client he had, and I didn't. So I was like, is that because of my Asianness, or is it because of my essence? Because at the same time, it was a very kind of like bro-y, boasty, like I'm so fucking awesome kind of role, which for me, that's also not my wheelhouse. I generally play like wholesome guy next door, like good guy types. So I can't say for sure. I can't say definitely. It's just kind of just like looking for maybe patterns within that. Like, does that like is that why I didn't get something, or is it because I'm just not famous enough? Like it's hard to say with any I guess definite answer, but I can say something that is definite is that last year I definitely got the most auditions I've ever gotten for specifically like Asian male roles, which kind of proves that they're writing these roles.
Awesome.
In the past, I would get them as well, but then I'd also get like some all ethnicities. They just say, "Oh, we're open to seeing all ethnicities." And within those two, it's just like seeing the final result and product. It's like it says all ethnicities, but who did they end up going with? Was it an Asian guy? We do have that ability to check that, but is it because of the Asianness? I can't say that for sure. There's no way I could say that for sure. Or is it because of other factors? It just so happens that this person was perfect for the role, or this person did something really, buzzy recently, and so they went with this guy because they wanted more eyeballs on their projects. There is, it's one of those things that there is really, really difficult to really ever say for sure. But for the positive thing, it definitely is, at least last year. And it's been, a growth, especially since Crazy Rich Asians. It kind of within the industry, being tapped into it from like the Asian entertainment side, things definitely changed after Crazy Rich Asians, because it proved this can make money. And that kind of is the whole like Hollywood language, where it's like it needs to make money before the system will take a risk. Because I will say, like, from starting out in like more indie projects and trying to work my way into the bigger stuff, the stuff that's not constrained by a large system is way more diverse and inclusive and open-minded and stuff. People just want to make what they want to make. But then as soon as more and more money starts getting thrown into the system, then suddenly everything gets riskier. Everyone gets a little bit more scared and wants to do things that have been proven to work in the past. And then that's when things get really weird too. So
at that point, everyone's like everyone's invested, so everyone gets their say. It kind of sounds like that's interesting. Like as much as like that, you don't you don't hear that much about it, which is interesting because you in order for something, it's kind of like that that in order to get work you need representation, but to get representation you need to have done some work, like that little catch 22. It's kind of that same thing with like interesting or diverse or divergent in some way movies, where in order to like get those off the ground, it has to be proven that this is something that is successful either with well, I guess money is probably more the factor than like whether or not it really resonates with an audience, because like that's one of those big things about like horror films over time, is like those are things that really resonate with audiences and in some cases really resonate with critics. But like the blockbuster horrors weren't really like they were few and far between until you got to like the Paranormal Activity movies and I mean Blair Witch Project and those kind of things. So it's really interesting that like the mold breakers can feed something that will like get you more money and more budget, but you also have more eyes and more fingers on it.
Yeah. Also, the irony with those two movies specifically is once they got money, those movies stopped being good.
Yeah, with their sequels. Yes.
Yeah.
Saw as well.
Yeah.
The relationship between it's like what James said, is business and art, and it's these two things trying to coexist in the same sphere.
Yeah. Sometimes giving more money to a project is not the answer. But there's also, talking about the business side, there's the Chinese market of now. A lot of these studios are trying to make movies that they know are going to be popular in China, since that is now a huge market for these American blockbusters. So
although that I feel like has waned in the last few years as well, because there was definitely that kind of push, I think more like mid 2010s, but then it also seemed like it's also kind of like stepped away from that a little bit as well.
Oh, interesting.
There was an article about it recently. I can't remember which trade it was, but it definitely kind of talked about how like there was a push for that, but then there was like a let's maybe not. And then there's still like co-productions and stuff. I believe the Meg 2 is in production at the moment.
All the millennials or the Millennium Films and H Brothers that are making some really excellent. I mean, heck, what was the movie? The Hitman's Bodyguard, the Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson movie with Gary Oldman and Salma Hayek. That was a movie I personally really enjoyed, even though it wasn't like an amazing movie. But it was a fun movie that had a lot of really good chemistry, and it also felt like a late 80s Jackie Chan production, because there's a couple of movies specifically like Who Am I that like the endings were all filmed in Amsterdam, and it really seemed to kind of like draw that energy. And I mean, The Raid is another example of like Welsh director, Indonesian fight team. And I think Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park was the guy that did the soundtrack. So you really have like these really interesting collaborations that do go across seas, and kind of you get different vibes from different film styles.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I just hope we can all come together.
I gotta wonder though, if it is waning in the Chinese market, could that actually be because now a lot of these big studios are trying to cater to an audience that they don't fully understand and are missing the point?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think there's I mean, I can't speak 100% to it because I can't say that I've studied it fully, but like I know that like China only allows a certain amount of foreign films to come in every year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But if it becomes a co-production, then it kind of like bypasses that filter. But then and so then I know at like starting early on, it was like let's just pander to them, and then we can make their money. Where because like Iron Man 3 had literally the Chinese release had like Chinese scenes where they filmed with Chinese actors and kind of just tossed them into the movie, but they kind of
wow.
had, they had like no real bearing on the plot. And they were just
Interesting.
it was like a random side plot that they managed to kind of somehow weave in where it kind of had bearing, but kind of didn't, and then was there, but only for the China market.
Interesting.
I need to
Um,
watch the Chinese version of Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I think maybe the scenes themselves might even be up on YouTube or something, but like, they're just like these random scenes that were woven in, or like there were also what the Chinese audiences also eventually started calling flower vases, where like in X-Men Days of Future Past, they got a really big Chinese actress to say maybe 2 words in it.
Mhm.
And so Chinese audiences were like, well, we see what you're doing. And they
Yeah.
call them flower vases because it's just like, oh, you're just gonna put like a Chinese actor and make them look pretty and stuff, and just have them stand there. Okay, great.
They did that in the second Avengers movie as well. Or they filmed in South Korea, and they had a prominent Korean actress play the
Claudia
doctor
Kim,
who helps
yeah,
create Vision. Yeah,
Yeah,
she has a very small role. So that's
yeah, and then like people catch on to that, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
there was.
Well, I feel like people don't like being pandered to, really. Like, especially when you really pick up on it. Like I'm definitely one of those people that when I feel myself getting pandered to, I just kind of like my eyes roll. And it's like, oh, just fuck you, dude. Like, like, and because pandering is very much like you should like this because this is like you. Whereas like something coming from
driven.
exactly very business driven, but like something coming from a genuine place, like this kind of pandering versus representation, something coming from like an honest place of like I want to represent a character or something that like actually embodies an important ideal. That's a lot more important. I mean, I speak in terms of I speak in terms of right now amputees, but like that's the kind of thing where it's like, all right, cool. Are you like, is this a pander? Are you throwing a bone to people, or is this like actually matter to the plot? Is this an interesting representation of a character? And I actually like speaking of Shang-Chi, I think they did a really good job with Razor Fist at the end, because amputees in general kind of have this trope of being henchmen or villains, and like in addition to a bunch of other things. But like at the end, when they all team up and he's one of the people that teams up with the main good guys, I thought that was actually kind of cool and well done. You got to subvert a trope in a big way that like I've seen, that I'm a lot more aware of now personally, as a disabled person.
Subverting tropes is just, when it's done the right way, it's just so amazing when it comes off on film. Like it gives you goosebumps, It's really
Agreed.
cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for being on our podcast. This has been a wonderful discussion. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll put all your social media links in the description of the podcast so people can follow you. So everyone who's listening, go follow James Tang, and really excited to have you on, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Follow James Tang, and please give the man money. I need to see the raunchy comedies this man will turn out.
Yes.
Yeah, same here. I need the laughs.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
And go watch Batfished. It's actually very good. You can
Thank you. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, I found it on YouTube. I don't know if you have it anywhere else.
If it is, it probably was someone else's ripped version.
So go to the official YouTube to watch that.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening to Nerds and Friends.